this particular item actually makes me think about two different people. So it makes me think about the best friend who wrote it for me, and it makes me think about my mother. So about, I think it was 3.5 years ago now, my mother passed away very suddenly from leukemia. It literally went from 1 month she was sick and nobody knew what was happening to 2 months later she was gone. And one of my best friends from college shared a lot of interests with me, like a lot of friends do. And he knew that one of my favorite things is classical literature. And so what he did was, without telling me, he wrote me a letter. He actually handwrote it, and it's in cursive. And the contents of the letter are kind of ridiculous, but basically it starts like a Jules Verne book, and I think he actually dated it 2 years in the future, or like a year in the future, something like that. And he set it on an island in the middle of the ocean where he apparently washed up on. And it had some kind of element of time travel. I can't remember exactly because I haven't read this in about a year. But the whole point of it was he was trying to prompt me to come out of my grief and to start writing again. So he ended the end of the letter with, "I'm waiting to hear from your next communication." So what that did was it caused me to come out of my grief and to write him back. And so it started a chain of letters between the two of us. And again, you can even see he put a wax seal on it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's what it makes me think of.
So, a kind of assignment failed here. I didn't have something to bring. I worked at 5:30 this morning, rushed home to get to this class, and I'm sitting in my house looking around at things and thinking, holy shit, I've had this stupid thing for like 35 years. And I was like trying to attach meaning to it, and I remember thinking, oh, well, throughout all the years, I just grabbed it. It initially was my mom. She got it from her brother. He had gotten it on some trip to the Middle East somewhere, India, I don't even remember. But I always remember looking at it throughout, even when I was a little guy, at it in the house, and so I grabbed it. But at the same time, watching you guys listening, I was kind of like, all right, assignment fail. But instead, I'm going to come back someday and share it, or maybe I won't, but I do have two at home now that I've thought about it. I have a picture of my family that I will definitely keep with me, and the reasons I ordinarily don't is because I don't carry a wallet. I don't know if you noticed I flashed my money earlier. I just don't carry a wallet. But the story of my family, and I'm not going to go into it really, is that I have two adopted kids. I helped raise them from the ages of 1 to 3. They're 25 and 22 now, and they're incredible. I have two dogs that are part of that family. One's an 11-and-a-half-year-old Weimaraner who's blind and deaf, and that'll bring tears. Almost does right now. But those two things, and then one last piece. I have a little piece of paper from when I was 20 years old. I went to Santa Barbara on a whim, and I started doing acting classes. Did some theater, just on a whim. Well, more than a whim. There's a big backstory. I won't go into it. But I wrote on a piece of paper, a successful working actor. I believed in the, you put it out there, it'll happen. Or, maybe it was my mantra. Or whatever it was, I wrote it down. And I still have that fucking thing. In a piece of, in a box somewhere, and I'm getting all emotional, but I have those touchstone things. I just didn't bring them.
No worries.
So
all good. Thank you for sharing.
And I do wear this as a necklace once in a while.
I don't know how many of you believe in magic, but I've been on a spiritual journey for quite a while now, and I've grown to really believe that there's a lot beyond our five senses. This happens to be something very special to me. This is a crystal. I don't know what's on the back. I'm not a geologist and I've never really asked, but you can see all kinds of interesting things in here. Sometimes faces appear, sometimes just different messages that I feel. So ever since I was young, I've always had this inner knowing that someday I would meet my soulmate, my Prince Charming. At 18, I met my husband, who I was married to for 25 years, and that just ended. And it's been interesting because the last 6 or 7 years during this spiritual quest, I've learned quite a few different techniques and healing methods and that sort of thing, and I picked up Reiki. I don't know if any of you know about Reiki. So, not specifically Reiki, but the energy that comes through your body, you can feel. And they've actually run, thousands of scientific tests to prove it's real. But you can actually feel it. Once you start to pay attention to your body and the feelings and the sensations in your body, you can actually start to feel the electricity and the energy. So I started to feel this years ago. And the interesting thing is that I was going through a transition in my marriage and my family, and at the same time I was picking up all kinds of interesting messages that weren't coming from me. So I was guided by Spirit, Universe, God, whatever you want to call them, to go to this crystal shop. And I went there, and it was one in Laguna. It's not there anymore. But they were closing out, and they were moving to Dubai. And I thought, well, I've got to get something. There's something here for me. I feel it. And I went upstairs, and it was like an attic space, and it was all dusty, and all the crystals were very dusty, and it was old, and the electricity, it was halfway on, so it was kind of dark. And so I'm wandering around, and all of a sudden I stop, and I could feel something. It was like, there's something here. And sure enough, I'm looking on these shelves, and there's literally hundreds of these. Not just like this, but just all different kinds of clear crystals. Hundreds of them on the shelves. I'm thinking, okay, there's something here. And I reach down and I look at the bottom shelf, and sure enough, I use my left hand. It's kind of my sensing hand, and it can pick up vibrations. And I'm feeling the crystals, and all of a sudden my hand is guided to the very, very back. And I reach back, sure enough, my hand was on fire. Like, okay, this is what you want me to have. So this was the one. And it's not significant, and other than that, I think the colors are very interesting. But sure enough, I got it home and I started meditating with it. And there were all kinds of messages that started to come through about what I needed to do, where I needed to go, how I needed to handle my life, and get through, the divorce and all this transition. So now, it's kind of neat because this actually signifies or stands for my soulmate. And I can actually feel him when I meditate with this. So that's what's really special about this for me.
So, I have a really good friend. His name's Mark, and oh man, I don't even know how long we've been friends now. But he's probably the closest friend I've ever had. And he recently moved away to Portland. And this shark tooth was kind of like that visit. We went to a thrift shop up there, and he kind of picked this out for me. Said this kind of reminded me of him, and this reminded him of me, and so he got this for me. And I guess backstory. It was random. We met at a Forever 21. He was working there just out of like pure just irony, because he wanted to kind of mess around and be at a store for a short period of time and just not follow any of the rules and break all of them. And then he roped our other friend Graham into it, and then he would do same things, and they just do ironic things in the class or at the job site and kind of not follow the rules, and then eventually they got fired. But it was cool because I got to meet him in that process and get really close with him and like just kind of see his artistic stuff. And we'd travel. He was originally in Laguna, and we would spend a lot of time there and hang out, and it was cool. Got to get to know his friends and everything, and then he got to meet some of mine, and I don't know, we just shared a lot of stories together, and just it was cool. It was kind of like for lack of a better word, like a bromance. And then, so I was really bummed. It was cool too, because I actually introduced him to his wife, and then got to go and be the ring bearer of that situation, which was really cool. And and then like when he moved, I kind of missed him a lot, because I was just like, dang, he's like the closest friend I had here, and it was just easy to get along with, and we could just say weird jokes and stuff. And it's kind of what kind of inspired me to kind of get into improv and stuff too, is because I don't know, he was just so ironic and just funny. So I was like kind of strive to be like him a little bit in some ways. And so, going up there and seeing him in Portland and seeing his wife and everything, because I'm like good friends with his wife too. It was cool just seeing like his whole life unfold into like this new place that was just as quirky as he was. And so like anytime I have this, it kind of reminds me of that like cool friendship that I was able to have. And guess that's it.
Thank you.